Next up, we're moving to new business. We have a shelter committee letter by John Rizzo, and that is also before you in your packet.
Thank you. I'm going to have my Steve Ryder and my daughter Valentina. She's on spring break. They're going to hand out the handouts. Well, thank you for inviting me. I've been looking forward to this opportunity for a long time. So thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Office of Homeless Services, City Council members, and to all of you, the members of the Homelessness Planning Council. I sincerely applaud everyone here for their selfless work towards ending unsheltered homelessness in Davidson County. My name is Jonathan Rizzo, and I'm a small business owner here in Madison. I've been a volunteer with several partner agencies of our community continuum of care over the 9 years I've been here in Nashville, especially my favorite is Open Table Nashville, especially assisting on the Cold Weather Patrol outreach teams. In the COC, I believe I've been to every committee at least once, but I serve proudly as a member of the Shelter Committee. Today I'm here to officially present a letter and urgent plea on behalf of my fellow committee members. Ms. Jaha Martin, Chairperson of the Davidson County Continuum of Care, Homelessness Planning Council, Nashville, Tennessee. Dear members of the Homelessness Planning Council, we, the members of the Shelter Committee of the Davidson County Continuum of Care, represent a variety of organizations tasked with providing shelter to those experiencing homelessness in Nashville. In the course of that work, we are regularly confronted with the reality that Nashville simply does not have adequate housing stock to address the needs of those we serve. This, of course, directly affects our ability to provide shelter to all in need, often leaving individuals and families in temporary housing facilities far longer than they deserve. It's in that context that we write today to urgently request your immediate assistance and action regarding the following objectives. We ask the HPC to organize a campaign to raise sufficient funding to create and preserve a minimum of 2,500 units of permanent supportive housing to absorb the number of people in the point-in-time count, to be utilized by people in Nashville currently experiencing chronic homelessness or within the 0 to 30% range of area median income. After this first phase, we are requesting a second campaign to push for 10,000 total units to absorb the number of people currently on the Section 8 waiting list. We strongly urge you to form an affordable housing committee to focus on and prioritize these housing goals. As a shelter committee, we bring together shelter operators, case managers, and outreach workers to strategize best practices and goals for Greater Nashville's shelter system. Ideally, an affordable housing committee would be in communication with our committee and would be comprised of realtors, developers, and citizens with knowledge of industry best practices, zoning laws, and tax credit programs. It is our belief that these efforts in developing adequate affordable housing for our city should be a priority within every committee of the Homelessness Planning Council and by every partnering agency of the Continuum of Care. We would hope that a coordinated campaign would be endorsed by our elected representatives as we work to achieve our collectively stated goal, to bring housing first to our most vulnerable neighbors in need. We believe this is in accordance with our strategic community plan and the work of the Mayor's Affordable Housing Task Force, as well as supported by the work of nationally renowned researchers such as past HPC member Dr. Beth Shen. We've heard the call, and we strongly urge the rest of this illustrious and compassionate body to take up this cause with vim and vigor. We have a strong fundraising plan of attack and respectfully wait for your request to present it to the body for review. Sincerely, the Davidson County Continuum of Care Shelter Committee. I'm happy to take any questions or clarify anything if you'd like, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Any questions from the board?
I'm just looking at Derek because I tried to pay attention during your, as you train us every year when we look at ethics and what we can and can't do. So I'm just just curious as a point of clarification in terms of this body as it is formed under Metro. Engaging, when I see fundraising, I am thinking about a solicitation. So I'm just curious.
Well, I'm glad I'm glad you phrased it in that way, because you are created by the Metropolitan Council. You're not a board and commission of Metro, but you are a council, so you're part of Metro. But I had to explore two things on this interesting topic. One, you're a creature also created under federal guidelines or subject to those. So I read a very, very lengthy Code of Federal Regulations, 24 CFR Part 578, that deals with the continuum of care and the Homeless Planning Council. And unfortunately, it doesn't speak to planning councils or continuum of cares as fundraising organizations. It's just not part of the framework. So I was looking to see if that provided authority for that activity, and I couldn't find it. Secondly, you are correct. Within Metro itself, there are inherent conflicts of interest. The government is a taxing authority, raising funds that way. It doesn't raise funds, whether it's through its boards, commissions, or councils, for fundraising. And therefore, those two are kind of diametrically opposed. And you also then would be competing with the charitable organizations that are created to address these issues. And I think that's one of the reasons that the government has its thumb as a taxing authority, but the charitable organizations raise funds through solicitations and so forth. And that would probably put, not probably, I'll be direct, it would put the government in conflict with charitable nonprofit entities. And that's not really the place that I believe Metro or those nonprofits want to be. They want to collaborate and work together, which is what the continuum of care is about. I think the approach would be better placed on fundraising through organizing the charitable organizations to do that. But I don't see a path, haven't found a path where Metro could go into the business of soliciting charitable contributions. It's just not there. And it also creates all types of things. This organization, in that capacity, all of its meetings would be subject to open meetings. It's a very difficult framework for you all to have and conduct your business, but it would grow into massive issues. Unintended consequences is just the best way to explain that. So I regret having to give that advice, but from a personal perspective, but that is my advice, that it would not be a recommendation that you pursue yourselves as being a fundraising entity through charitable contributions.
Thank you for that, Metro Legal. Any other questions related to this?
May I
Can we
respond
entertain questions
briefly?
first? Sure. Give me a second to make sure there are no other questions. Did you have a question?
Not of Mr. Smith, no.
Go ahead.
I'll go ahead and comment after Mr. Rizzo.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I certainly agree. This should not be a fundraising entity. I think I mentioned that we asked the HPC to organize a campaign to raise sufficient funding, not to raise the funds, to organize. Thank you.
Go ahead, Tom.
Sorry about that. Not that that's a technicality, but we shouldn't let a technicality derail what you're working on, because it's critically important. And I know you mentioned Open Table, and you're probably more familiar with Open Table and what they did on some housing. And I don't remember how many units, and this is at the
Village is at Glencliff?
yes, Glencliff. And I don't remember how many units they provided, but it was not a small number. And I just Googled while you were talking. 600 churches in Davidson County, 597. We have 2,500 units that you're looking at. You know, that's 400. That's 4 per church. Some could do more, some could do less. But your familiarity with Open Table, my first thought is go that direction in some fashion that brings units online and use them as the model. And then I also have like a Methodist pastor sitting to my right, so he probably has provide more guidance than anybody else on this. But I mean, I really appreciate what you're looking to do, and you can't let the regulations keep you from your end game. We just can't go that particular route. So I guess I'm just offering encouragement, and probably from everybody. And I think everybody wants to see you succeed on this. Not that you're doing it to succeed, you're doing it to provide housing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We are not entertaining from the public. There are no action items. Are there any other questions related to the board, the Homelessness Planning Council?
I guess my one question, I mean, I realize we can't take action, but on the fundraising piece, but could we make a recommendation? Like, I mean, I'm looking at this Mayor's Affordable Housing Task Force, and I'm embarrassed to say I don't really know who's on it and what they're really doing, but I do wonder if we could assist in passing this along to another body or someone else who might be able to take action. I think I love the idea of engaging the faith community. I also think if you look at the 100 Days campaign model that they just completed for families, that involved bringing a lot of nonprofits in the community together. So I wonder if it would be possible to talk to United Way and the folks who organize that, and if there's a way to organize a similar campaign around bringing these units, to the community based on that, either that model or the Open Table model. But could we recommend that the Mayor's Affordable Housing Task Force or someone else look at this great idea?
So I think one thing, let me just give a point of clarification, because I think you missed the board retreat and maybe haven't had time to review your materials. One of the realities is there is a gap of our standards of care in the committee, and we are aware that the recommendation has been to name that permanent housing. And so the executive committee and this body are moving forward with that. So that's not anything that is secretive. I don't think at that point you need a conflicting group with that. So that is in the works. So I don't think that there is further action needed at this point in terms of us doing that, because we do hear you. And so there is work to be done. We are now consulting to get a actual description of what that committee would look like. And then at that point, I don't approach people to chair a committee and I don't have a description of that committee. And so we want to be mindful and forthcoming in what that committee looks like. Office of Homeless Services has agreed to help me find that. So we are researching that. Once that is established, we will then have a chair and begin to form that committee, which could look at which would look and I think help with the supported housing and some of the units coming on board. So that being said, the mayor's administration is a little bit different stance. They have not at this point even appointed someone from their office. So there is not, to my knowledge, a mayor's task force anymore. And this body does not have the authority to determine what the mayor's administration did. I wish I did, but I don't have that. So I will say, with that being said, if there is a motion there's not an action item to be said, because unfortunately we can't move on action that is against what Metro Legal would recommend. So at this point, this body cannot take action on your letter, but we will be looking at forming what is known now as standards of care. And the recommendation will be permanent housing. So looking at moving forward with that. Are there any other questions related to this?
It's not a question, but more so a comment. So the specific request, as I read it in the letter, I started with clarification because solicitation is the first thing that comes to mind when I see fundraising, and so just to get that legal opinion. But I see the request here, specifically the formation of the Affordable Housing Committee as a part of the HBC. And so the entities that are named, or categories of entities that are named, realtors, businesses, et cetera, if there is a way to look at how they can be integrated into what we are moving toward the Permanent Housing Committee. That is a recommendation. We're not taking action today, but that is my recommendation.
Absolutely noted. And I think there may have even been, as Kenitha pointed out, I think some people may have even put that on that Post-it. So it's a matter of just, I know we get a lot of information, but as board members, it's very important for us to remember that. So last time she has the committees listed, and then there were those things on the back. And so that is a piece of it. However, again, y'all know how I am. I don't approach people without having clear information, and I do want philanthropists on there, but we need a very detailed description of what that committee looks like. So that is noted, and we will definitely incorporate it. I appreciate that feedback. Pastor Handy.
John, good to see you, my friend.
You too, Pastor.
I will tell you as a faith person that movements never start within bureaucracy. And so you have to create an alternative to what you're attempting to do. This is a wonderful place to talk about it. Bureaucracies don't create movements. I'll just leave you with that, and we can talk over coffee.
Thank you, Pastor. I look forward to that. May I leave with one final thought if there are no other questions?
Let me give you one point of clarification. Metro Legal is showing me the Metro Nashville Housing Division through the planning department, as you all know, with Angie Hubbard as well. So that would be the entity in terms of looking at from the mayor's task force. So I want to make that point of clarification. So it is that, but it is also through that. And I think it's just labeled differently. And
Just real quick, part of its purpose and mission is to align systems, resources, and partners to create housing solutions that are affordable and attainable for all. So there may be a pathway for you to communicate with that division and see if your collaborative effort could be guidance for them. But I have to stick that this body isn't the correct path, but they may be able to at least inform you what they're doing and see whether your proposed campaign and networking and so forth could facilitate what they're working on as well.
Oh, yes, sir. Excuse me.
Angie Hubbard with the Housing Division of Planning made a presentation probably a couple of weeks ago or so to council members. And I know that they are really begging for individuals with ideas, developers with ideas for affordable housing to come to them. So I think that we're on the right track in terms of steering you towards them. I think that is, in my opinion, your next logical step is to present what you're presenting here to them and see if there's an avenue there that can take you in the direction that you're trying to go.
Thank you.
thank you, Councilman. Mr. Rizzo.
Well, thank you for hearing me. First of all, I really appreciate this opportunity. I suppose what I was looking for next steps, if you will, just to entertain it, I think it's imperative that we begin a serious and concerted effort immediately to organize our partner agencies of the continuum of care in leading a large-scale effort to achieve our collective goals. I would require more time to get into specifics, but it starts with putting it on the agenda at every meeting. Look around you. These are people currently involved in raising hundreds of millions of dollars. There are even more people that want to help, but they demand a more efficient approach to solving this problem. They and we want solutions, not Band-Aids. We need housing first, services included, but secondary. And these are people... I've heard it from several of my higher net worth customers, but there are many more like them at some of the churches, as you mentioned, and businesses around town. Some of them live as far out as Brentwood and Franklin, but there is a lot of money here in Nashville that we're not currently accessing. Our network in the COC reaches around the world. I don't believe we're using it to its full capacity and potential. Our shelter operators, case managers, and outreach workers should not be so overwhelmed and burnt out. These are signs of improper management. The mayor was on this very council just a few years ago, and if we cannot do this now, I don't think we ever will. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzo. Okay, moving forward in our agenda.